I'd like to welcome everybody to the Facilities Management and Transportation Committee meeting for Monday, October 4th, 2021. Do we have any public comment on the agenda? Okay. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Mrs. Epstein. Good evening, everyone. First on the agenda this evening is Dewey Engineering with an update on the new middle school construction.
Hello, good evening. Who's driving? Is that you, Dave? Okay, quick update on Colonial Middle School progress. We can go to the next slide. Overall, our exterior is coming together nicely. The roof is on the entire building, and the contractors are really just working on completing the remaining portions of the building envelope. If you've been over on the paved area between the middle school and the new school, you see the front entrance taking shape. And I know that Bill, who's with me tonight, has been taking groups of Bob's teachers through the building to get acclimated a little bit with the building and also find the spaces that they'll end up calling home in a few short months. Okay. Outside flat work is started. Flat work, I mean sidewalks. We're going to be paving later this month and landscaping later this month. The small courtyard outside of the front of the building has already turned green, so we have a couple of grassy areas that are taking shape, and so outside it's coming along well. Okay. Another great shot of the front entrance. You've seen this in the renderings over the years, so it's starting to look like what Jim Kiefer was showing in a lot of his renderings early on. Okay. As I mentioned, the last bits of exterior metal panels are going on the back of the building. This is the patio area outside of the tech ed area. So most of the rest of the color on the building should be in place really by the end of October. Okay. Inside is where a lot of progress has to be made between now and our move-in date in February. At this point, the kitchen is progressing nicely. All of the stud framing is in place. The next step that you'll see here is drywall and insulation being installed. The ceiling in the cafeteria is a 2-story space. Our electrical rough-in and a lot of our concentrated effort is in the kitchen and cafeteria right now. Okay. Over in the 3-story classroom wing, a lot of the work is really finished between the terrazzo floors, the lockers, excuse me, doors are going on classrooms. What we needed was power to be installed to the building. That occurred in September. And in the middle of October, we should start with above ceiling inspections by the township so we can drop ceiling tiles and have classrooms finished. The next page here is the second floor progress. Same thing, terrazzo wrapping up. Classrooms have floors, have marker boards, have casework. Projectors are next. And as I mentioned, ceiling tile and above ceiling inspections. Okay. First floor, much the same. We're just finishing up terrazzo there. Classrooms are really in the same shape. So 3-story classroom wing is looking good. The auditorium is getting a lot of paint. So you can see here on the left-hand picture that the black paint up in the ceiling is completed. A lot of the painting of the walls and the spackling of the walls is now complete. The next thing that should start to happen here are the wooden acoustical clouds get hung from the ceiling, and all of the work progresses there down to the floor. The last thing that happens once all the lifts and the construction equipment is out is the floor gets painted, you get carpeted aisles, and the auditorium seats will be delivered. The right-hand side is the gym. Both gyms are fully complete from a masonry and paint standpoint. New lights are going in the new main gym. The wood floors are going to be delivered and they have to sit in the space and get acclimated before they're installed. But gym wood floors look like they're going in between the middle and end of November. And then we should see bleachers being installed shortly after the new year. Behind the walls and under the floors and above the ceiling is all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work. That's progressed well. As I mentioned, the new switchgear was energized on September 16th. That allows us to push power through the rest of the building, which will happen over the next couple of months, and more importantly, push power to the mechanical systems. So we've worked with our contractors to prioritize areas that have to get heat first for things like wood floor acclimation and also for the wood clouds that are in the auditorium. So we've been having scheduling meetings to prioritize where we need power, where we need heat, et cetera. Soils on the site will be moving probably between now and the end of the year. The site that is close to the Schuylkill River was completely flooded by the last hurricane and also the rainstorm that followed that. So they've had to actually reconstruct their ENS on the site. It was under some 6 feet of water. So we're waiting to just be ready to go there in order to try to export some soils. Okay. And now this is some of Bill's handiwork in putting together the game plan for February occupancy. We've been working with the school team and with Joe and administration on understanding what our traffic patterns are when we open. So we've done some sketches to distribute for roadways and sidewalks and how staff parking is going to work and how bus and parent traffic will work. We're working on some key elements in the schedule. I mentioned the gym wood floors, but one of our big issues is elevators. It takes a long time to get an elevator installed and ultimately inspected by the state L&I inspectors. So we're in the process of doing that. Elevator cabs should be arriving here in the next couple of weeks. HVAC controls by Siemens are ongoing. And along with the classroom wing, we want to get admin accelerated so that the admin area is available to Bob and his staff to do some early setup well ahead of the occupancy date. Ultimately, at the end, where we're going to be pressed for time is on completing and getting inspected the fire alarm system and then also the kitchen. These are the two elements that take the most time between now and occupancy. The fire alarm obviously has to be complete and tested and available in all areas of the building. So we're really starting to fine tune and look in very short intervals of what the schedule requirements are for us to be in on time. And what hampers us is still what you've heard about on the news, material shortages, and I call it the post-pandemic economy, and how many things are on container ships that are off the coast of California yet. It's a new story every day. Bill and the rest of the team have been just looking for areas and asking questions in order to find things before they become issues. And if things pop up, we try to mitigate them in any way possible. The terrazzo floors have been a great example of that, where alternate product has been found to try to keep us on our schedule. Electrical devices are missing parts and pieces when they're delivered to the site. I think I mentioned last time, just like the new car lots, there's no cars on the lots because the electrical components are not in the cars. So we just need to find every which way in order to use the purchasing power of the contractors and the vendors that we know in order to get materials. We're super fortunate that the roof is done. If you've talked to anybody in another district, there were no roofing projects completed this summer in school districts in Pennsylvania because you couldn't get insulation. So in some areas, we were certainly fortunate. And thanks to everybody that was involved in getting PICO to the plate and to get us energized with electric on the 16th. So that was certainly a big hurdle to get over. We'll just continue to anticipate these things. Hopefully before they come up, we report them to Joe. We make decisions on the fly in order to just keep things moving.
Do you anticipate anything that, even the smallest thing that might hold up is there anything left that would hold up everything from moving forward?
So right now, Chris, to answer your question, there's not something that's staring us in the face that we have to fix so you can make the date. What we're worried about is the stuff that comes out of left field. Okay, and every day this stuff is coming out of left field. So if something comes up and there's a problem, we try to work through it, keep Joe involved so that we can keep you involved and informed if there's something. But we are tracking the schedule a lot closer than we do on other jobs, just to say, hey, are you sure? And if contractors need to come in and work some proactive overtime, we've talked about this before, The costly overtime is the overtime you do in the 4 weeks prior to opening. But if you come in and work a Saturday, a couple of Saturdays now, certainly when the weather's nice, that's the way you do it surgically or in a targeted fashion in order to get a bang for the buck. But right now, today, at this hour, the schedule says that we're getting in. We'll have lots of logistics. There will be some things in the building when we occupy it that are not finished. You've been associated with a building opening like that before. I know that there'll be punch list items. There might be items that we have to provide workarounds for. Once again, before you get in, we'll provide that list so that everybody understands what we have and don't have. I've mentioned before, for instance, the auditorium and how you could open a building without an auditorium. Well, as luck would have it today, all the stage rigging arrived and was delivered at the site. So that's everything that's hanging above the stage that we always wait for at the end of the project. So we're pushing in areas that we can. We obviously want the kitchen done. That is a must have, but the guys who put the stage rigging in don't put the kitchen together. So we're fortunate that way. We have to be targeted and surgical in what we do. Okay. And we're continuing our district plan and the admin team and the school admin team. This has been a very good process, particularly because a lot of these vendors are going to come and start to install their equipment. Drew's got a good bit of work ahead of him once we get the computer closets ready. Projectors go in. We're planning for the furniture deliveries to come, the cleaning of the building, and we continue these meetings in order to work out the dirty details of trying to move over the course of a weekend. I promise it can be done. It will be nerve-wracking, but it can be done. We've done it before. And that's all I have for the middle school update tonight. It's just another shot of that front door where it's finally starting to look like the render.
Jamie, on the very first picture where you had a layout of still had the parking lot in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to stay there until all the field, like, I didn't know if you can go back to that picture.
That's it, right?
No, next one. Next one. Next one. All right, it wasn't the first picture, Jamie.
So I think it's the first one.
No, keep going. Yes, it was a drawing, not a photograph.
Okay.
That one.
Okay, so on
It's
the,
only the 8th picture, but that's okay.
so on the far left-hand side of that image, you see a parking lot. It's a gray square.
Right,
Right now, that's where we park.
that's the temporary parking.
And we're going to convert that to an area that staff can park in.
Okay,
So they'll park up on the football field as we're demoing their building.
okay,
And we'll have a walkway for them down from the football field into the back of the building. And that's how they'll get in.
okay,
Okay. And so you can imagine the building is operating. Out front is the parent bus loop. Buses are looping around the building. But on the right-hand side, in your existing school, there's machines ripping that building down behind fences.
okay,
So what we're about to do when we get to February is we're going to flip-flop the site.
okay,
Right now, we're on the new school side, you're on the old school side, and we're going to flip it once we get to February.
so this parking lot,
That stays all the way until next year.
and what is that down there? Yeah, but that thing all the way down there. That parking lot in the
Existing
front on
parking lot.
Belvoir Road.
We'll make that construction safe.
Okay, so that will become, that's what I wanted to know. Is anybody actually parking there and trekking up to the new building?
We do have some space there for that to occur. We'd like to get everybody out of the demo zone and our fence that goes right across that parking lot to separate it, to provide some extra spaces, but I think we got plenty.
Right. Okay, so this parking lot will be fenced off to keep people from parking there and then being near the demolition.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Where's the drop off? Where's the transportation?
So when we move in February, staff, this will be clear, staff will move back here, and then buses will come in off of the road.
New Hope.
New Hope.
New Hope,
Street.
New Hope, thank you. And cars will come in here, right, Jim?
yes.
buses will loop all the way around the building.
Mhm.
So they have a right side drop off and we can fit, gosh, around that building, we'll be able to fit 30, 40 buses easily. And then cars will be able to drop off right in front. So you just have to have some traffic to navigate for about 4 months. But it's pretty much, it already helps with traffic out on Bell Bar. There'll be a little bit of mingling here, but eventually you'll have buses solely coming in here and exiting New Hope and cars only coming in here. So we have to knock down this one first.
Would it be possible, because I'm a visual person, in a future meeting to just kind of have like a picture of the phases of how the parking is going to shift till we get the final project, or is that sort of what we're going to have to?
So this is February, and yes, absolutely, we can make one more image that shows what it looks like with the existing building gone and the new parking spaces in. For
February to the fall.
Okay,
Right.
thanks. Thank you.
If I could interject, that's still being, I had, this past Friday, a teacher tour for Bob Fowler and a group of like 88 students. During that tour, I go over in detail what is for them to expect come February when they're moving into the building. With specific locations about how that access around the building, how the parents will drop off, how the buses will come in, where they're parking, so that they will be aware prior to them even getting over there.
And we just did a similar thing when students returned in the fall, because that gray parking lot between the two buildings is new. We paved the entire area and set up new parking spaces and a new traffic pattern. And so we were there along with all of the staff just to make sure that it worked well, make any adjustments that were needed along the way. And fall was very successful.
So may I ask who went, you were with the teachers on the tour?
Yes.
Joe, were you there?
Yep.
How did it go over?
Great. Went really well. Nothing
They-
but positive feedback.
Okay, great.
The main reason was obviously to show them the building with a focus on the storage in their meeting spaces, so they know what they need to pack, what they can pack when they move into the new spaces.
Nothing but positive comments.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you.
The second item on tonight's agenda is Dewey Engineering Construction Management Extension. So just a very brief kind of history and reminder for everyone that we originally had Dewey full-time through the end of November. I mean, that's October rather, until November 1st. And we had talked about a 2-month extension in the beginning of the project, if everyone recalls that, at a price of $30,000 a month. So
Well, that's part of the agreement. And we knew when we rebid, it was going to be extended 2 months.
correct, I'm sorry, yes. So that was part of the agreement. So what we're looking at now is how much longer we will need Dewey services for the remainder of the project. So Dr. Christian and Dave and myself and Jamie and Bill Hamley, we had many detailed conversations about the need and then what's going to occur when we get into the new building and how we would start the demo of the existing building. So we'd like to recommend that we extend their full-time services through March. So that would be another $90,000 to the district on top of what we said was the original 60 that we agreed to. Now I'll let Mr. Zablowski talk from this point forward because I think he can, rest your mind at ease that, we're doing very well with the contract and allowances and finances. So I think we're in a very good spot to do this also.
Before we get to Dave's numbers, let's just remind everybody, the rebid was a certain amount of time. So we knew 2 months into it, we were going to extend by a couple months. But also we lost time due to COVID. There was about a 25-day shutdown. And then we lost another 25 or 26 days due to steel fabrication and COVID issues overseas. So that gets you to the end of February. We just think there's value in having Bill here full-time through the end of March because we're talking about a teacher move in President's Day weekend, punch list items, Joe will certainly be over there doing everything, but we'd rather, take it to, and Dave will go over through the numbers where we are with the budget. Take it through the end of March, so we have somebody on site full-time. Knock on wood, everything's going smoothly right now. We just want to keep that momentum going forward. So, Beth? Oh, sorry.
Is March enough time? And, God only knows, we could have another breakout, we could have another shortage of material, we could have, God only knows what we've all learned. Is there an option to extend a little long, like, if we don't, let's say we extended it through April and we didn't need them through April, is there a payback for that? Or it's like, you gotta extend for April and we pay that whether we need them or not?
We have Dewey for part-time, right? For a
Starting in
portion, that's what
April?
we're looking at is part-time after March.
And how many hours is part-time? What does that mean in April?
I believe, Jamie, we said, is that 2 days a week?
Essentially half-time, right?
Right.
2 days, 1 week, 3 another, or AM and PM. To answer your first question, yes, we can extend. What we thought we'd come to the board tonight, ask for through March,
Okay,
and then revisit it by January 15th,
fine. Okay,
just to see, and because of all the
Right.
things you said.
right.
Um,
Okay,
And if we need to then, because it's much better than, if we need to extend a month or two, then that's better than in August coming back and saying, hey, we need somebody to come back full time and like getting everything moving again.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Dave, did you go over where we are?
Okay, yeah, so the 150,000, we're looking at as an investment through March. It can extend even further, but looking at where we're at with the cost, we had budgeted almost $1.2 million for finance debt issuance. It looks like we're going to have about $300,000 left there. We haven't used much of our $900,000 of allowances in all the prime contractors' contracts. So if they don't use the allowances, that's money that they would pay back to us, or we wouldn't have to pay them. There's been, for the size of this project, very few change orders. Again, knock on wood. And then contingency of almost $5 million that we haven't touched anything yet. So we are looking very good financially on this project, and it's really coming together. And we're just looking at the last 6 months now to get the building out.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it seems like money well spent, especially given the shortages and the issues that we're dealing with. And, better that Dewey, Bill is over there, Jamie's working on it, than Joe having to be on top of those issues, in addition to taking care of the other facilities in the district, which is a lot. And I'm sure, with the supply shortages, it sounds like it requires more frequent check-ins with contractors, more frequent discussions with contractors. And it's great. I mean, I think it makes sense given the conditions to keep them a little bit longer.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned a $1.5 million contingency, and then you mentioned about 1.2 million in allowances that we haven't quite used yet, which,
900,000 in allowances,
but the 300,000
300,000 in the debt issuance.
debt issuance.
Yeah.
Right. So if that money isn't used, does it go into a different pot, or is it used for different projects?
Well, the
Like-
way we borrowed it, and we'll get into this in the finance, because I have the
Okay.
financial guys
Okay.
coming, but we left it broad enough to be CMS plus any other capital project. So we could move anything that's left over into the capital projects to handle all the other things that are going to be going on in the district for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no one has any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Zabowski. The third item on the agenda this evening is the solar panel removal. And again, just to refresh in everyone's memory, we spoke about the solar panels and a budget of $150,000 to remove them and to recycle the existing panels. Dewey Engineering, I know Jamie and Bill have worked with Penn Builders, who is our general contractor on the job, And they gave us a number to do all that work at $97,000, and I believe $97,068 is the total. So that's something that I just wanted to update everyone on. It's substantially under what we thought it would be. And that would be something we would look to move on at our next board meeting, because the timing of that will affect, obviously, getting that down and shutting that off. You get penalized when you're not running the solar. So we got to have it shut off with our termination letter with our provider. And then we can move forward with demoing the building and moving the panels. So again, it's good news in a way that, again, it's substantially less expensive than we had anticipated.
Two things on the shut off letter, that the termination of the contract. When do you expect that we will be served that or have to pay that termination fee?
So I can tell you that the termination letter comes from us to Brookfield Renewable. So that's already been issued and they already have it. So, then, once they sign and they come back, then we'd have to work out how the payment, everything would work out from there. But the termination letter is sent.
Yeah, we're anticipating March 1st is when we're going to be terminating and taking the solar panels off the roof.
And one more question. The cost of the solar panel remover overall, is that going to eat away at some of this contingency money, or is that separate from
Well,
what you
the
mentioned?
removal is the 97,000 that Joe just talked about, and the recycling of the solar panels. Now, the penalty that we have to get out of the PPA is the $675,000, which will cancel the last 10 years of our PPA with the Brookfield Renewable, who's the owner of the counterparty.
Right, so that 675,000, is that going to take out of the contingency money?
Correct.
So that's not included in what you just said we might have left over. We
Right.
won't have at least 700,000.
Yes, all those numbers I just had, that we'll have to take the 675 out
Okay.
of that, plus the 97, plus the 150 for Dewey for the 5-month
Right.
extension.
But
Okay,
from
thank you.
last year's surplus in the budget too.
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I have it all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so any more solar questions? Okay, great. Next item is the bus depot camera upgrades. I believe, Mr. Zablasky, you have a brief update there, sir?
I do. If you remember when we acquired the bus depot, and it is now our property, and we wanted to bring that on to the network with the school district. We want to get some security cameras over there. We did get the fiber when we connected the new middle school. We also had the same company run fiber down to Belvoir. So we have access to the network down there. Now we are looking at the next step, which is, we're gonna, this isn't the security piece, but what we had talked about when we did this was the way the buses right now, it's required that first student must equip all the buses with cameras so that we can monitor those behavior incidents, and now most recently the COVID tracing incidents that we need. All the current cameras have a hard drive that has to be actually go to the bus, remove it, run over to either the school or to this office so that we can view it. What we're trying to do is to modernize that. To say it's a little clunky is an understatement. So what I did is I put the proposal we got from Seon Mobile View, and this goes into a whole lot about what they can do for us. So I'll let you read that. But basically, they're plugging in a transmitter into the back of every single camera on every single bus, and we're going to be setting up a field that we can automatically upload all the videos immediately when they return back to the bus depot. Now, this isn't the most expensive. The most expensive would have been real-time cellular. We could have looked at it live. That was over $100,000. But what we thought is we can always upgrade to that if this doesn't suit our needs. But this is for the company to give us the software to monitor this, to give us the hardware to plug into each of the cameras, and give everybody in administration the access to pull the data off of whatever school bus they need to see instantly as soon as the bus returns to the bus depot. So that cost came in at 63,750. That's actually the same cost we were given almost 2 years ago. So the cost hasn't gone up. So that's a good thing. But this is what we're proposing to be the next step in upgrading the bus depot. So we would propose that if the committee is okay with this, that we would put this on the agenda for later this month so that we can proceed with the purchase order and get this installed sometime, later this year.
Dave, I want to make sure I understood you. So this is basically 64,000. The next step up would be 100,000?
No, the next step up would be another almost 45,000.
Okay.
If we wanted to go full wireless and be,
It
we
would
could
be a
we could
total
watch
of
the
what?
buses live if we wanted to.
So it would be 110,000?
Correct.
And is what we invest in this, if it's not satisfactory, is that able to be turned into the next step up, or do
Yes,
we have to start over again?
It's just an add-on that we could add on to, it would be an extra 45,000 to
Okay,
this.
so
would be
theoretically, it'd be
full
another
cellular,
45.
yeah.
So it's either then, now, or we don't, and might not need it. But if we do, it would be the same price later.
Correct. We thought we'd start with baby steps, and if we need to
That's fine.
upgrade later, that would be an
I
investment.
just wanted to make sure this wasn't down the drain and then we had to start over again.
Oh,
So-
no, they complement each other.
Okay,
It's-
great.
They have a
Thank
whole
you.
suite of products, and this is just the base model and this is for our 83, 85 buses that we currently run.
I have a camera question, but I don't know if you want to do it now or wait until other comments, but it's a bus camera question.
What, you can ask it now.
Okay, so the other night on the news, I saw that, I don't know if anybody else saw it. I think it's Penn Ridge. Phoenixville. Phoenixville has these fancy new things on the sides of their buses
Yeah.
that take a picture, a camera sees the front of a car that passes the bus and the license plate on the car. And they went into a like partnership with their local police.
Right.
$300 to put a thing on, each ticket is $300. The school district gets 100, the municipality gets 200, which is helping to pay for the cameras that the school district is purchasing. Given how much problem we have in this area with people passing school buses, I didn't know if it's something first student is mentioned or you've looked into or you've heard about.
Well, we just discussed this in cabinet this morning. We heard Garnet Valley has the exact same system. So we're going to be contacting those districts to see how
Great,
much it costs and how it's working so far.
wonderful. And then I guess we could talk to our municipalities and see if they're willing to partner with us.
Yes, definitely.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, just a question on this proposal. Where's the video going to be housed? Is it going to be on a cloud server or somewhere like that? Because I imagine it's a massive amount of data.
It'll be housed at somewhere at the bus depot.
Okay,
Which is going to be I guess, what do you say, Drew, a hub on our network that we'll be able to access and then pull off by bus number. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to set up every bus with its own basically identifier saying, okay, this is bus 2, this is bus 68. And then if the incident gets reported, as soon as that bus gets back to the bus depot, the principal can pull up the video on bus 2 and see exactly what happened.
I see. But the information will be on servers that we control that are subject
Absolutely.
to our security protocols and things like that. Okay.
Right.
No, I just wanted to clarify that because I saw something about it getting uploaded to the cloud, and I just wanted to make sure that we actually had the ability to control the servers so that, it just wasn't out there on some companies.
Yeah, I mean, Sayon
private data.
provides that, but we will be the administrators of that. We will be able to tell who can look at what videos.
Okay.
We think this will help us, in addition to helping us resolve disciplinary issues that arise on the bus. This could be very helpful with contact tracing as well. Our little guys are assigned seats. The principals have given them their seats, and every once in a while, on occasion, a 4th or 5th grader decides to not sit in his or her seat and sit with somebody else. And the drivers are busy driving, so they're not always able. So I can't tell you how many times Rose or Kylene have called parents and the child will say, I wasn't actually sitting in that seat. So, so then we have to go get the tape They have to send it to us, and it's a day-long process. So now we'll be able to get it. Exactly. Yeah, but that changes.
But with
every
all
once
the
in a while.
drama that happens, those friends are changing.
So now we'll be able to do it instantaneously, because that's really, from a COVID perspective, the bus has been the most challenging piece this year.
So just out of curiosity, if it's from a COVID perspective, can we use the ESSER's money?
We could try.
What was it?
Can we use Essers?
Oh, sure, we could. Yeah.
There we go. How about that? That was better than we could try.
My biggest concern is that the ESSER's money is not going to go as far as we think, though. It's like 3.4 million doesn't go as far as it used to.
60 here, 60
That's
there.
right.
What's
That's
the-
right.
I wanted to ask, is this also available on the vans?
We do not have cameras on the van, so this would only be for the large passenger buses.
And I know that things will be different in the future, once there are more bus drivers who have been hired and, but at this time, how many buses are we using that are outside of our buses that this will be part of the equipment?
Well, in this proposal, we had given them the number of 86 bus runs. We're hoping to get back there, but in this age of COVID and trying to economize due to the shortage of drivers, I think we're currently running about 76 bus runs, which is, very tight. But if things get back to normal, we do believe we're going to get back up to 86 and hopefully find some drivers to drive these buses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zablosky. Next item on the agenda is a policy review. So there's two policies that Mrs. Epstein and I spoke about and have been on board docs. They've been in draft, so we're just trying to basically complete them. But one of them is the integrated pest management, and the integrated pest management is a policy that it's a new policy. So it's something that probably should have been in there years ago, but it's something that we do abide by and follow and always have. So, this one is pretty much as it reads. If the board's okay with it, good to go. So again, that'll take your review to see what you think of that policy. So that's policy 716. And the next policy for review was 709. And 709 is for building security. There are some minor changes in this after reviewing it with Tim McDonald and myself. And that is, again, after the guidelines, if you look after the start of the school day, it used to say access was limited to one entrance that would be unlocked. All entrances are locked now. So you cannot just go into school. So that's a minor change again. The unlimited access, again, changing to superintendent and designees, because a lot of the designees will be the superintendent's cabinet, director of operations and designees. A lot of that could be maintenance facilities. If you have an emergency in the middle of the night, they would need all the access. Supervisor of building and grounds is just, again, someone that we would want to be, again, in an emergency to be able to get in every school. And then district safety officer and designees. The next line item is limited access. And what we're just saying here is it used to say building principals and assistant principals to assign buildings, but we allow their key fobs to get them into every school during a certain hour. It doesn't make much sense for them to have to go to see another principal or to do some work and not be able to get into a building. So again, a very minor change. And then on the last page, Dave, we are looking to strike. It says each building principal shall maintain a log of building employees with access codes and building keys. That's done automatically by the key fob system. So that's really not relevant at this point in time. So we were looking to get rid of that. So they were the two policies that are up for review. If anyone has any questions, I'm glad to try and answer them. Okay. With that being said, the next item on the agenda is policy deletions. Again, these are policies that were in draft. The first policy that's up there is sales and rentals of property. And it's policy 707.1. And if you look at the policy, it's something that is better off in board regs, not a board, in administrative regulations rather, not in board policies. So that's all we're doing is taking it out of board policies and moving it to administrative regulations. And that's the same for the use of district parking lots. So it become an administrative regulation, not a board policy. So they were the two that we'd like to delete from the board policies and move them over to administrative regulations. Any questions on that? Great. With that, that's all that's on the agenda this evening.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, any other board or committee questions? Okay, that being said, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, Eunice, we're ready.
Okay, great. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee for October of 2021 to order. I'll turn it right over to Mr. Zablosky. I know we have a lot on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about something that we've talked about 3 different times about funding the middle school project. Oh, do we have any public comment, Drew? I have nothing.
There's no hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we are talking about the final piece of our puzzle of how we finance the middle school. Now, the reason we're here talking about this final piece is because early on in our planning session, and as the middle school is just getting started, we identified a couple of other priorities. Number one was this building needed to be expanded a little bit. So we added a couple classrooms and converted a couple areas. That cost us about $1.6 million. We also had a pretty leaky roof. If you remember the buckets coming into the to this building several years ago, that cost us about $479,000. And we bought a bus depot, and that's been a nice acquisition for us, and that cost us about $6.9 million. So in total, we used about $9 million of money that was borrowed originally for the middle school, but because we did the description as the middle school or other capital projects, which all 3 of those fit into, we were able to do that. But we knew that we were going to have to pay the piper eventually. So we are here tonight to discuss the plan and where we're going to go in the next year. We don't have our regular cast of characters tonight. We have Chris Bamber filling in. Our regular crowd is at Hatboro Horsham tonight, and that's going to cost them.
Duly noted.
But Chris
As
is
long as it
here.
doesn't cost us.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris is here tonight.
I will. Personally, I'll tell them.
I do have the presentation ready. So Chris, why don't you take it away, and we'll see if we can fit this all on here.
Sure, yeah. Sometimes you have to zoom in a little bit because there's lots of little numbers in here. Well, big numbers, but in small size font. So once again, good evening. My name is Chris Bamber from PFM Financial Advisors. Fortunately or unfortunately, I am not Scott Shearer or Garrett Moore, but they send their regards. And we're here tonight really, as Dave talked about, as an informational update as it relates to the financing aspects of the middle school project. Well, there's nothing, we don't need any further action to facilitate this issuance. We're more here just for update purposes, but just to kind of give you a recap of where things are, first in the market, then about the financing, and then about the final financing. But in terms of the market, tax exempt interest rates remain at or near all-time lows, which is a good thing, obviously, if you're considering financing the balance of your capital projects. You know, as you see here on all in these words, about 18 months ago at the start of COVID, interest rates spiked just given the economic uncertainty. A few months later, interest rates reached their all-time lows. Since then, and you'll see on a chart on the next page we'll get to here in a little bit, Yeah, might as well switch to it right here. Down towards the bottom there is a kind of blow up version of the chart since January of 2020, so right before COVID. So, once again, the kind of theme or the main point here is that tax exempt interest rates, which is what we're showing here. This is a 10-year maturity for a tax exempt interest rate, still remains at or near all-time lows. So that's certainly a good thing. Once again, I would remind the district that, once again, when we look over the last number of years, obviously things have been extremely low. Once again, the kind of top or the middle graph there kind of illustrates that over a longer period of time. So in terms of what the market's focused on now, or maybe what the market's focused on going forward, still COVID remains a concern. The Delta variant has obviously had markets in a little bit of a hamper. The signs about potential signs of inflation in the economy and the Federal Reserve's reaction to that is another thing that the market is focusing on. So, know that that's what we have our eyes on as well. And we're in constant contact with Dave and the administration about, how the market's moving and what things are doing. So as it relates, that's kind of an update on the market. As it relates specifically to Colonial School District and how it will enter the market or how it impacts with the market, as Dave mentioned, we're in the final step of a multi-step or a multi-stage financing plan to finance the balance of the project. One slight revision, which I believe is incorporated into this plan, is that previously, I believe we had anticipated borrowing about $10 million for this remaining step. Due to the great financial management of the school district, and the great year that you had, the district's gonna plan on using about reduces the amount of borrow down to $8 million. So once again, we just kind of think about the different things that may have changed since maybe Scott was here last time. And I think one of the main things is that we will be downsizing the final bond issuance, once again, due to the cash that the district is able to offer due to its great financial position. The final bullet point there, number 4, is that no further board action is required, meaning that all the necessary resolutions have been adopted by the school board. Once again, we're here as an informational update and we'll continue to update the district as we go through the process. But in terms of the estimated timeline or the next steps, here we are tonight discussing things with the finance committee. We'll continue to go through refining the financing documents and updating the offering documents. We'll need to go through the credit rating process to get the district's AAA rating affirmed. Once again, that's an extremely strong rating. So congrats on that. So we'll go through that with Dave and his team in November or December. And ultimately, we look to price these bonds, which is when we lock in the interest rates as early as January of 22. And roughly those proceeds would settle about 30 days later, which takes us to February of 22. So we think once again about the next steps. Nothing for the board. All the action has been taken by the board. It's now on the financing team, and we're setting the stage here to potentially be pricing the bonds in January of 22. I'll kind of go through the remainder of the packet. Actually, Dave, I'll jump to page 4 of the packet, the pretty color page with all the tiny numbers on it. That's the existing debt summary right there, actually, of the district before you did anything else, meaning that the debt issued as of today is what you're looking at now. The following page in the board packet is the pretty color page that describes basically not only those numbers that you just saw, but also this final debt issuance that you see there in orange that's highlighted as estimated. Once again, our goal here, as you see there in column 7, is to generate a construction fund of about $8 million, which brings the total construction fund over there you see in column 8 to about $89 million, $88.9 million. One important thing, as Dave mentioned before, once again, the construction fund size here has grown a little bit for the ability to pursue those other projects that Dave mentioned. But one thing I'll point your attention to is due to favorable market conditions and some certain structuring that we're able to do, column 19, which is the overall annual debt service of the district, you'll see maxes out at about $10.6 or $10.7 million per year. On a total millage equivalent, meaning what is the millage equivalent to the total budget? It's about 0.87 mils you see there in the bottom right-hand corner. The reason we mention this is because if you go to the next page rewinds in time to not quite as a pretty color page, but at least a more detailed page where back from August of 18, where the project was estimated to be about $77 million you see there. And the total annual debt service was about 10.7 million, which equated into a millage impact, Dave, if you just scroll down just a little bit, to 0.99. So once again, it's a long-winded way of saying that due to some favorable conditions and some favorable structuring, not only are we able to finance not only $9 million of additional projects, as Dave mentioned, but also keep it within under the millage rate and the run rate that was previously discussed or thought about back in August of 2018. So once again, this is more of an informational update, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the plan or the market. But once again, just wanted to provide an update of where the market is, the financing plan, as well as the next steps for the debt issuance. So Dave, I don't know if I missed anything that you wanted to.
No, I just think that, if we look at what the plan was in this slide here, and we were expecting $10.7 million of debt service, and that was only for the $80 million project and not, the $77 million project. And then we look at what we're actually projecting with this last borrowing at 10.6. We've done a whole lot more with the money than we thought we would, and the debt service is $100,000 less per year than we thought it was going to be 3 years ago. So I think that's pretty good planning on our part, and I think the taxpayers can appreciate. Yeah, there they are. All right, we're done. We can adjourn.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I have a question.
Okay.
So remind me last month when we went through the budget, how much under budget we ended up being? When you presented the budget when we did the.
Okay, yeah, the surplus we had, we were
Yes.
projected, of course, it's unaudited. We're going through the audit this week. We had projected, revenue was going to be up about 3 million more than we had expected. And expenditures came in about $4 million less than expected.
Okay.
So, and we talked about, we had sort of a negative outlook on how taxes were going to come in, especially earned income taxes. Well, we set a new record for earned income taxes, which is a great, thank you for taxpayers for, having the jobs you have and supporting the school district. And then on the expenditure side, we had a whole lot more retirements than we thought we were going to have. We didn't pay our bus contractors as much as we thought we were going to have. Now, we did have cyber costs go up, but that was more than offset by what we saved in our bus transportation.
That's a net 7 million.
Net 7 million. And that's why we said we're going to, put some towards, this project, almost $2 million. So we don't have to borrow as much, which again, keeps our debt service down for the next 30 years.
Why are we only, it feels like we could be putting more and mortgaging less. If we have a net 7 million, did you guys run the number? I mean, I gotta believe there was some math that I'm not capable of doing where it's like, well, if we kept this now, earn the interest versus taking the mortgage out on the 8 million. If we have an extra 7 million, I understand we might want to keep some of that, but we have this huge surplus. I'd like to understand the math as to why we're borrowing as much as we are.
So, okay, so the
Yeah.
2 million comes right off the top. That's 7 now turns into 5.
Right.
We have other capital projects. Now that's going to depend on how the middle school budget ends up. But we also talked about using that to keep the tax, any tax increase, well below the Act 1 index this year. So we do have plans to use it over the next couple of years. And that's what we're presenting tonight, but we're open for discussion.
Yeah, I would perhaps add 2 other considerations from the financing side. First, with interest rates where they're at in terms of all-time lows and, 20-year debt costs 2% or just over 2%. The equation about the previous thought about borrowing versus using cash is a little bit different when interest rates are at all-time low. The second thing, which is important for the district, is that its Moody's AAA rating relies a lot on the maintenance and continued contributions of fund balance. So, understandably, for capital, it's one thing, right? But for another thing, so once again, from our eyes, with the question about borrowing versus cash, a lot of times what we kind of mention in terms of considerations is given where long-term interest rates are, it's a little bit of a different equation back when, debt costs, say 6%, 5 or 6%. But still, once again, from the district's perspective of a AAA rating, maintaining cash is also very important as well.
Okay, but we also, I'm sorry, Sue, just one more thing. We also financed this based on the idea of this swap that ended up costing us a lot more money. So I would like us to consider, and I'll stop talking after, I would like us to consider using more of this extra money from our budget to not charge the taxpayers, the financing of this in the end, even though I understand we did some stuff, but the financing in the end costs a lot more than we anticipated. And I'd like to see us use some more of this extra money.
Mr. Zablosky, can you, just since we've raised this, can you go back into what it really cost us with the swap? And then also kind of outline what our budget deficit approach has been for the last few years, and the fact that, we have had to go into fund balance to make ourselves whole, and then we've saved, but I think, putting that all into perspective for the public will be important.
Well, that's great, but let's talk about what our fund balance is and how much it is.
Right, and that's gonna be on the agenda for next month.
That's part of it. That's why I'm asking to talk about all of it, because
Right.
it all paints the picture.
So when all this is said and done, if everything stays the way it is right now, in your view, statistically, what is our fund balance going to be?
Well, we won't know the final until the audit's done, but
Right, I get it, but,
it'll probably be somewhere close to $30 million.
and 20 is the threshold for
Well, that-
AAA, for the
I think that
AAA
was the
rate.
threshold the board had set, but I mean, we've had
Yeah, I-
two fairly unusual years that,
No, I get it.
and we don't want to take our eyes off the long term too, because I think, do we pick up 200 kids this year? Because I
Yeah.
think we got like 5 new teachers and 5 new classrooms. Well, if this trend continues and we have to bring on new teachers, we're going to soon run out of classrooms. And then we're talking another capital investment somewhere down the road, either
So
expansion or new
That
building.
was going to be my next question. What kinds of projects, and maybe Dr. Christian needs to answer this, or I guess both of you, what kind of projects are we looking at within the next year or two from a capital improvements viewpoint
Well,
that we need to pay for?
what we've accomplished in the last, 5 years, I mean, we did the 3 elementary schools, but Conshohocken is probably gonna need some work. Their HVAC is probably gonna be, moved up on the list. Got a new middle school, brand new, high school, that was renovated. This building got, the almost $2 million renovation. So the bus depot is gonna need some work. We knew that that's an old building that's probably gonna need some work. And we are looking at possibly, if the kids keep coming in, we need places to put them.
Classrooms, so we may have to add classrooms down the road.
Correct.
Is there anything else major, like we did all this paving this past summer? Is there anything else, upgrades of electrical or?
We have accomplished a lot in the last 4 to 5 years, and, the campus is looking really good.
Right.
But
What's on the horizon?
yeah, and I think the bus depot's on the horizon, Conshohocken HVAC is on the horizon, and more classrooms.
And don't we also need a second
Elevators.
elevator at the high school?
And the elevator for high school,
And generators at each of the schools. But
generators, right?
we could put together a list of the priorities for the board. And I just want to make sure we're okay time-wise. If we take a week or two to put together a list of capital projects for the next 5 years, from most important and most urgent, and then do the math on what they're going to cost, considering the fact that money is fairly cheap to borrow right now. I just don't want to miss the parameters.
No, and I have
And then
no,
if we can take some more off what we need to borrow, we can do that. The board can make
I
a
just-
decision.
I'm okay with this. We have this, I
Sure.
want to make sure we're being really fiscally
Yep.
responsible, and Dave, you are, and you guys do a great job, but we have this net 7 million. When I hear that we're borrowing 8, I need to understand why.
yeah, and if in the end you have the ability to do that in the next couple of weeks and the numbers look like it's the right choice for us, then fine.
Fine.
But I think we would like some more
Sure, and-
information.
And we're right in that ballpark where, the summer is over. We've received most of the bills for the paving, and that's all been paid out. So now we take the capital projects from what was done in 2021, and we start looking at what's going to be due in 22, 23, 24, and see what our, future capital expenditures are going to be for those projects.
The good news is, if there's any good news, I remember when the board first entertained the idea of purchasing the bus depot, we thought this last borrowing was going to be larger
We did.
as a result. So because of everything that the board has done and everybody we've done, we've gotten the capital projects done. And so it's going to be less. We just have to figure out what that number is. That the board's comfortable with, that's good for our taxpayers. And then obviously the board, Dave has already recommended that we come out sooner than later with a resolution not to exceed Act 1. And I don't even think we want to get close to Act 1. So I think all those things combined, we can come back in a week or two and put, we can put enough information together for the board to get comfortable with the number.
Sure.
Can I-
As far as the financing team, I mean, when do you need the final number? Before January or?
Yeah, we have plenty of time. I mean, the timeline that Chris reviewed had kind of financing document preparation in November, December, and then actually locking in the rates in January and then closing in February. So yeah, we don't need to know in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We have plenty of time for that.
So like I say, we need 2 to 3 weeks instead of 1 to 2. No.
So when you're putting that information together,
Sure.
could you also add in what your latest population anticipation numbers are going to be?
I will. And to Dave's point with Essers, even though we certainly appreciate the $3 million in federal funds, we did, we budgeted 4 teachers. We ended up hiring 6. We also hired additional 8 aides who are certified teachers just to have people here. So if somebody's out for COVID, we can slide a teacher right in the room. So we'll put all that together and then I'll do an updated enrollment projection. This year, I think, is a bit of an outlier. I hope it is, because the kindergarten is just about 500. Prediction was for it to be in that 420 to 430 range. I think we had some families that didn't attend last year. So we'll take a look at how many kids are a little bit older. But if we have 2 or 3 more years of 500, in the words of the main character from Jaws, we're going to need a bigger boat. So that's when we're going to be talking classrooms and/or a kindergarten center somewhere.
Yeah, they keep building new houses.
They do. And the hardest thing to predict is the sales of the current houses. That's the new houses we have. It's formulaic, right? But predicting the sales is the big challenge. And from everybody I talked to, I have a friend who's an insurance broker down on Fayette Street, and he just said, he keeps saying to me, Mike, yours is the hottest area. He's like, we are doing so much business. He's like, I can't, like, he's doing settlements every week.
Did you tell him it's because of your wonderful school district?
Our wonderful district.
So looking at the projections and everything that you're going to get the information, just for my information, if we look at the projections and we think that we may need to add another building, or the classrooms, how far in advance do those conversations need to start before we feel we really need that have the need?
We need a comprehensive, I could give you our enrollment projections from what we had from a couple years ago, but I'm going to go back to the county and look at the live birth data, and then we'll go back to Decision Insight, who we contracted with before. We need that first. And then we would really need to start having those discussions probably by May or June, whether you're looking at what's the feasibility of adding on to some schools. First of all, what's the staying power of what the enrollment is? Is it a temporary pop for 3 to 5 years where we can get by? Is it permanent where we're looking at 500 plus moving forward? And so then you look at, all right, do we need a couple classrooms here, or do you entertain the thought of another building? And we can have, because that involves not just enrollment, but that's an educational decision. That's where's land? There's just so much involved with that. And then ultimately building a new school, we know is at least 2 years, probably. Well, smaller school, 15 months versus an addition, which you can knock out probably, in 3 to 5 months, something like that. It's just, just so the board knows while it's up, it should be FMT. The district where we purchased, if you remember a year ago, we purchased 2 learning cottages from another district. They've informed me it's time for us to move them. They don't want to house them anymore. We've been getting free rent where they are, but they're doing construction on their district. So we are moving them. So when our families see 2 learning cottages going into Plymouth, it doesn't mean that we are suddenly adding 2 classes there. We're fine at Plymouth right now, but we have to move them somewhere. So we think we are going to need them. If you've driven by Plymouth Elementary, you'll notice one of those houses looks like it's done every day. And people are moving in right across the street. So by next year, I anticipate we'll need them. So we have a permit for footers, and that work's being done outside Plymouth right now. So they'll be in there in probably a couple weeks, but we're not using them this year. We're just placing them there. And I did, we're using, our elementaries are full. We're very creative with the space. I think we're good for a couple more years. The board needs a year without construction. I think you guys when I came to the district, you were finishing up a 3-year project at the high school, now a 3-year project at the middle school. How about a year with nothing, and plus the air conditioning in addition at Plymouth and White Marsh, and how about a year with no construction? And then we get back into planning what we need long term.
Anything to add, Scott?
No, I'm good.
Okay, any other questions from the board? All right, so I have down for November, we're going to talk about the 5-year capital project. We're going to have a fund balance analysis, and that's when we'll start talking about the 22-23 budget, more revenue than expenditures at that point. So, okay, well, thank you guys for coming.
Okay. We'll be in touch here as the fall goes through, as we start preparing the documents. So
Okay,
we'll be ready
great.
to go by January. All right, thank you.
All right, the next topic on the agenda is our first look at the, oh geez, I got the wrong numbers up here. This is not December 21 versus December 20. This is September. So we normally don't show a comparison in July and August because the teachers are still getting paid from the previous year. September happened to be September 3rd. This year was the first pay for our professionals, and we have to make sure that it's a very critical pay that we pay people that are coming to work, and we are not paying people that left. So we had a very good September 3rd payroll. And then we had the second one, September 17th. Now we're looking at October, and we have 3 pays in October. But these are the results as of September of this year, as compared to what looks like a lot of color. So the reason I have 2018-19 on here is because that is the last normal year pre-COVID. 19-20, March of 20, the world changed and we became a COVID world. And that was an abnormal year. We started last year virtually and we finished in person. And so this year, 21-22, we're hoping we're going to get back to as normal as we can in this world that we're living in now. So I put all 4 years up here for comparison. If you look at our revenues, the local revenue, this through September is at 79.41% of budget, and you look at where it was in the previous normal year, 79.81. So we're not that far off, and our local taxpayers they're just awesome. We're always above 78, 79% in September. The state has only given us 11.79%. That's usual because they said, hey, school districts get all their local revenue early in the year, so we can give them all their state revenue in the second half of the year. So that's the way that's designed. Now, the one thing that's really different is you see the amount of federal funds that we've gotten that we're expecting this year and how much we got last year. So we used to only get like 779,000 worth of federal funds, but with COVID and the COVID relief in 2021, we got almost $2.6 million, and we're expecting another $1.9 million this year. So those percentages are a little off as far as by comparison from previous years, but that's only because we're budgeting more and expecting more from the federal government. So overall, we're looking at 65.62%. Which is very comparable to the 65.41 last year, 66.82 the year before that, 67. So looks like we're in really good shape through the end of September with the budget. On the expenditure side, obviously our 2 biggest expenses are wages and benefits. And you can see we're at 10.29 and 10.58, very comparable to the previous years. Professional services are a little bit down, only 6.87% compared to 13 and 12% from previous years. And we believe that's just a timing issue because we're so early in October. We may not have received a lot of the invoices for the professional services in September. Our property services are up considerably, though. That's because of the amount of leasing we've done for technology, mostly COVID related. We do have a one-to-one computer program, and we pay leases for those machines. So that's why we're up so high there. The other services, which is our tuition and our transportation services, you can see we're back to normal, almost about 12%, because we are transporting. Maybe a little bit lower because we did cut those 7 or 8 bus runs. So we're at 12.19%. Obviously, last year through September, we weren't paying our bus contractor, so that's why it's only 9.45. But the previous 2 years at 14 and 11%, we're right in that neighborhood. We had 30% of our supplies budget. A lot of that comes from equipping five new classrooms with their libraries and their books and their furniture and things like that. So besides the teacher that and wages and benefits that goes into a new classroom, we're talking about $100,000 worth of equipment and furniture that it takes to establish a new classroom. So with the teacher, a new classroom is in the ballpark of about $250,000 to set up. So it does cost a lot. And then we get into equipment. That's a nominal fee so far this year, only about $10,000 of equipment. And then we look at the debt service, which we just talked about. You can see that we were about 32% in 18-19 and 28% in 19-20. But now we've been doing those borrowings all along. So now they're fully into the budget. And you can see we're at 40% last year through September, and this year we're at 40%. So that will stay pretty consistent for the next 10, 15 years, unless we refinance or have more projects. So overall, we're looking at excess revenue, 53% in 18-19 compared to 53% in 21-22. And then in between, we're at 54 and 53. So we are right in the ballpark with our budget, and things are looking good through the first quarter. So any questions about that? Okay. All right, the last item on our agenda is 2 policies that we're bringing forth. Again, it's a good time to discuss these. We have our policy number 602, which is budget planning. For as important as these policies are, they're fairly short, but they do, I believe, give a concise and the reasoning behind what the board does in budget planning and budget preparation. So the budget planning does give us, we had 10 line items on the old policy. We have extended that because we added number 6, which is the planet current future technology needs. We've been doing that for years, but it's good to put it in policy. That's in addition to the annual maintenance and replacement of facilities. So I think it was a 1-pager, was the old one, and now this one's going to be just about a page and a quarter. So, but it's for your review, and we have adopted the PSBA version here. You can see that the bolded is pretty much what was existing in the old one, and the words that are not bolded are added to the policy for this year. And then we get into 603, which is the budget preparation. And basically it enumerates exactly what we're trying to do with the budget. It's got to support our education plan. We're going to be maintaining our current programs, if not enhancing additional staff as needed based on the enrollment, new technology, equipment, supplies as necessary. And the process is estimating our revenue expenditures, which will be coming in our November and December timeframe. The budget documents are going out to all the departments and buildings this week, and we expect those back by the middle of November. So we believe this is it's been 5 years since these policies have been reviewed. A lot's going on in 5 years. I've been here 4 now, so I believe it's a good time to review these, and I think these are a pretty good policies. The only one thing in here, it does say that we will provide a 3-year projection, and I've always done 5 years. So if we say 3 years is a minimum, we're not doing anything bad by doing 5 years. So
This policy
You know what? Yeah, if you look at the old version of 603, it's kind of a really short. There's a lot to do in this one, yes. That's PSBA, yes. Okay, so if the committee's all right, we'll put these on for first read later this month. All right, and that concludes my agenda.
Great, thanks, Dave. Are there any public comments?
There is not.
Okay, any board comments remaining? I'm gonna guess that's a no, so we can adjourn. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in November.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. You'll see on tonight's agenda under item 3 for new business, there are 2 policies listed as numbers 307. The first one, sorry, I'm fogging up here. Item 307 is student teachers and interns. And this policy addresses the assigning of student teachers and interns in our classrooms. The board allowing us to assign them to particular teachers who meet the qualifications within the PA school code, requiring the district to ensure that they have all necessary background checks, as well as physical and TB shots with negative results. This is a new policy for us of night number 307. Technically, we are renaming and we're renaming this policy, giving it a new title, number, and language of student teachers and interns. Letter B, which is also listed as 307, which is an existing policy, treatment of outside reports, is one that we are recommending to delete simply because this particular item is already covered in board's policies 003, functions of the board, and policy 302, chief school administrator as executive official of the board. And technically those are items that that the chief school administrator of Dr. Christian is something that would also be covered in his job description of ensuring that we comply with PA State Department of Education requirements and other governmental agencies. Are there questions about policy 307? Okay. They will appear on the November agenda, the first item of student teachers and interns for a first reading, and then adoption ultimately at the second reading in November. First reading on October 21, second reading in November. Item C on the agenda of new business is flu shot clinic for the staff. We are offering this Thursday, October 7th, here at Colonial Elementary School, a drive-through flu clinic for all employees, regardless of whether or not they carry the district's insurance. If they carry the district's insurance, the flu shot will be completely covered by insurance. If they do not carry the district's insurance, they can receive the flu shot for $35. That flu shot clinic, which will be a drive-through, will take place from 4:15 to 5:45 p.m. Questions about the flu shot?
What was that date again?
October 7, Thursday, October 7.
Great.
And
This
then,
isn't, this isn't specifically about flu shot clinic for staff, but do we send out information to families in the district about flu shot clinics that might be available through the county Office of Public Health or other sort of public clinics that are being held?
That's a good question. I think our nurses do through the Friday folder through Kim. But I'll double check that, Adam, and make sure we do. Because I know CVS just started offering it, and especially with considering all the symptoms, similar symptoms, we want to get it out there, right?
If you go to Target, you get a free $5 gift card.
Nice.
And the last item under new business, letter D, rapid antigen testing for staff. We're happy to report that the district is offering once again rapid antigen testing for all staff who are asymptomatic. Testing at this time is taking place here at Colonial Elementary School in the staff lounge on the first floor, Mondays and Thursdays from 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we kicked off the rapid antigen testing today. So today was day number 1 that we began. And you can see Dr. Christian has some test kits in front of him this evening. He's elevated himself from EDD to MD very rapidly in one day. And it was a successful day to start off the rapid antigen testing. I believe we had 14 staff members participate. Any questions about rapid antigen testing? Back to you, Beth.